yes, we're getting dangerous, and guess what? We got Cliff here. Yay!
Cliff! Hi!
Howdy.
Howdy. Is
And
that better?
we got
Howdy.
Donna in the house, and she is up here saying, "Don't forget to like, share, folks. I know you have subscribed."
I
No,
was in the middle of posting. It's just me and him tonight when I looked up and Cliff was there. I'm sorry. How are
No worries.
you?
The link was giving me grief.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's been a weird week for technology because my earlier today I have a Lexar thumb drive. It is, I think we got it early 2000s. And I have things on there I don't have elsewhere. Like we have a Pokemon movie for John and Patlabor, Patlabor, Joe.
mm-hmm. Yep,
The anime. We
mm-hmm.
have the movie. I have it. I shall make you a copy if you
That's the
desire.
old school '90s anime.
I, I love this. I love this thumb drive. It of the thumb drives I have owned, this puppy has just been through it with me. It is full. I can't add anything to it, but I have had it. It is held up. But for some reason, Frankenstein would not acknowledge it or my new Samsung Drive or my 1 terabyte portable hard drive. It was like, what do you mean those things don't exist? It was like they're plugged in. No, they're not. For some reason, Frankenstein was insisting that those things did not exist and they were not plugged in, and he had no idea what I was talking about. And I had to get my oldest, and he didn't want to listen to him. Frankie was very stubborn today. And he has been very difficult about letting me load my brushes into my Clip Studio Paint. So
Take him out back and shooting. Just get it over with.
I just spent. Holy crap! I think why did I have spent money reviving him. I can't take him out in the back and shoot him. I don't have anything else to use. I will be alone in the world.
I'm sorry.
Like I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about more happier times here, such as new free comic book day. I'm not certain if it's this Saturday or next
It's
Saturday.
Saturday.
Mhm.
It is this Saturday. Um, the rain, it's not been full blown long COVID, but I kind of got whacked by a little long COVID, a mild version of it this week. Um, so I didn't get all my groceries done today. We just ran the Family Dollar and Jewel, got a few things, came home. So tomorrow I have to go to Aldi. Saturday we are doing full free comic book day, and then Sunday I will get the rest of my groceries done, and then run over to Humboldt Park. It's a long story. I'm
I
not
was
going to
up there
waste your
like
time.
that. I was like, "What's over there at Humble Park?" It's like that's out of the normal. It's like, oh yeah, I got my groceries, I got this, I got this
Charles's
here.
godmother lives in Humboldt Park,
Okay.
and she owns a car. And Charles, Sam's Club has those big cases of monsters,
Oh,
and
energy drink.
monsters are like lifeblood to him. So he wants one of those big cases of monsters. And last time we ordered from Sam's Club, there was all sorts of craziness, and they didn't deliver it the first time, and I had I had to go on the warpath, and it was ugly. So I said, "Well, see if your Auntie Sally, excuse me, will take you to Sam's Club, so you can get your nice big case of monsters." And he's going to get a few other things. But that means since she lives in Humboldt Park and the closest Sam's Club to her is in Evanston,
Mm-hmm.
we have to, we, we will get up, do some grocery shopping, get home, and then travel. across town, meet up
So
with her, and then go to Evanston.
you're looking forward to what, maybe like a 1-2 o'clock arrival there to get to Sam's Club, maybe about like 4.
Actually, yeah, I gotta check the time because I think what they close what 5 or 6 on Sundays.
Something like that.
Yeah, I
But
gotta check the time again.
it's like I said, that's it's kind of like it's kind of like a trick, unless you're like up early that Sunday and getting to
She
whatever
got
grocery store at, at as soon as they open up the doors. It's like, okay.
oh no, she bona fide church lady. She ain't giving up Jesus for Sam Club. So, she's gotta go
No,
do that. And
well,
then
well,
she's gonna get together.
I'm
Uh
sure there's some Jesus something in the Sam's Club.
it doesn't work that way with her, darling.
no. I was about to get ready to say, it's like if it's like any other normal church that I know of, it's like by the time morning service is over with, it's 11. If you're getting there by no later than 12, y'all good. But if you're getting there about 2, I'm like, ooh, that's going to be some
Well,
time crunch.
a friend of hers asked her out to lunch, except this friend has, well, she asked the friend out to lunch. And this woman has consistently, every time they've made plans, at the last minute ducked out on her.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, well, you know what? We will get up, we'll go to local market, do what shopping we're gonna get done there. By the time we get back, it'll be about 11 o'clock. They will just be getting out about 11:30 noon.
Uh-huh.
So we'll have just enough time to bring everything home, put it away, and then get on the bus and we'll take the Jeffrey jump. So it'll be a lot faster. We don't have to go through Hyde Park. If we take the 6, we got to go into and through, we got to go through Hyde Park before
No,
we
no, no,
get
no,
on
no, no,
the
no.
outer drive.
I'm thinking 14, but it's like the 14 only get you downtown. It doesn't get you all the way to.
No, but the Jeffrey jump will, if we get the Jeffrey jump, we will get downtown
Hmm.
and we can grab either the blue or the red line.
Right.
But it's a 15-minute ride on the Jeffrey jump as opposed to 45 minutes with the
Or
6.
with the 6
The
or a
26
couple of,
does not run on Sundays.
no, well, 26 doesn't run on Sundays, and then the 28 doesn't go downtown
Yeah.
on a Sunday either. So because
Well,
it's
28 doesn't go downtown, period.
no, 28 does go downtown. It goes to Union Station.
Oh, that's,
How do you think I get to work if I was going into the office? I get to 28.
you must get that early 28 because there are times in the day when they only go so far.
Only during rush hour.
Yeah, I was about to
So
say
morning rush hour and afternoon rush hour is when they go all the way down to
they
Union
go
Station.
all the way down, but before other than that, they will maybe go as far as
47.
47th and then
Hmm.
turn around and come back. So yeah, so no, it's and the 28 is so you know the 28. They're not the
28.
most reliable of buses.
Actually, 28 is reliable. It's the people that is not reliable, because it seems like you see like 5 different classes of people getting on the 28 depending on where you get on the 28.
Yeah, the 3 and the 4 are like that too. Depending on where you get on, determines who you end up sharing your ride with. Sunday will be
It's a
fun.
mystery. If you lived here in this city, Cliff, it's a mystery, because you could count on your hands how many different classes of people you have to deal with if you go across the city on a bus.
Yeah, because the
Yeah, we don't do public transportation down here. We don't like other folks that much.
okay, but you like us, right? And we're okay.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, I don't know. It's something about the South. We don't like. They don't do public transportation.
Mm-mm.
We have
Well,
one bus line that maybe will run through downtown Memphis once a month, maybe.
Does this have to do with that point, that time when all the black folks quit taking the bus?
No,
Now
no,
this has to do with
it's the culture there.
this culture. We don't. I've never understood it, but down here they frown upon things like public transportation working. We all got our own cars. We don't need none of that stuff.
Well, not just your own car. It's like cars are cheaper because
Hmm.
everybody has the means to get a used car, and everybody has the means to make the used car work.
Yeah.
Unless you're like me and you get behind the wheel of a car and you immediately get triggered and you only want to drive fast and you don't know.
It amazes me because it's only that way on this end of Mississippi and Tennessee. We were in Nashville the last few days, and they actually have like
I
a
was going to
working
say,
transit
they have
system, and
buses
it
and stuff down there.
it amazes me. I'm just like, we're on now. Granted, the trip from Nashville to Memphis is measured in years, but it's like we go. It's like a different state. It's
Mhm.
crazy.
Oh,
No, he's telling the truth. It is.
no. I was thinking when I was at Camp Lejeune, we had, I think, I'm trying to think. Um, I'm trying to think what was the town. I think Jacksonville was the our nearest town. Um, and there were certain areas there that you could get the bus to. And
Mm,
I think they had one bus that at certain hours of the day would come to the gate of the base,
mm,
so that people who worked on the base could take the bus. You know, civilian contractors could
mm,
come. You would get off the bus, and then. But I don't think of it. We never took the buses when I
mm.
was there. We always there was always at least one person who drove, and we would all, everybody would pony up for gas, and
You
that's
know,
how we got around.
it's also, man, this makes this. I'm not trying to knock living down here. There's a lot of things I don't like about it, but I do like the slow pace of a lot of things. But we didn't have like real highways and roads that were paved over with lanes until the mid '80s.
Mhm.
Uh, um, I live in Olive Branch, Mississippi, and the main road through here is Highway 302 called Goodman. I was in my teen years, and it was still a two-lane dirt road.
Wow, you
And
were in
now, I
like,
mean, now it's industrialized, but yeah, we don't do public transportation. We barely do roads, and everybody down here drives like they drove on dirt roads. So
okay, so
Shoot, it's
you
like
are
we got
definitely in. What was that show with the good old boys and the General Lee?
the Dukes of Hazzard,
to
Yeah,
have it.
you were in Dukes of Hazard country.
I'm not that far removed from it because I did have family members who were moonshiners. So
Do you have a recipe?
Lord, no, I don't.
Oh
Probably
See,
a
now
lot of
well,
alcoholics in my
now you're making me
family.
think about episodes of Dukes of Hazzard. Why Uncle Jesse would never get caught. Would never get caught moonshining.
I
And
was.
do you know the reason why he never got caught?
My dad used to say it's because Boss Hog was buying his stuff on the side.
Mm-mm.
Mhm.
It's based upon how strong his moonshine was.
Ah,
His
okay.
moonshine was strong enough where you could put it in a gas tank and you could run a car off of it. So
Dang.
it served a double purpose.
Mhm.
Nobody's going to check a gas tank for moonshine.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
Okay, that
funny
makes
because
sense.
there there was I don't know if they're still open or not, but there was a comic shop in West Memphis, Arkansas, that we used to see at a bunch of conventions, and they were selling like they had multiple copies of like the first appearance of Iron Man and just Avengers #1 and all of this stuff. And they were if you picture a hillbilly or a redneck, they were these people. That's the level of Southern they were.
Dang.
And we were talking to them one day, and they were straightforward about it. He goes, our granddaddies were moonshiners, and they bought all these funny books and threw them on the top of the moonshine to pass by the cops. We just kept them.
Okay.
And now they're selling them for, whatever they're going for now. But yeah, they were decoys for the moonshine business.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're making money in other ways. So,
Yeah.
comics, folks, comics have uses.
Yes, it
That's
does.
right.
We have uses.
Carl was saying it's like that way in Central Illinois, Cliff. We have buses in our town, but you don't ride them unless you have to. That's true.
That's becoming our trains.
Mm.
You don't ride anything other than the metro unless you absolutely have to.
We don't. We have
you
one
know.
train line that comes through here, and at 6:45 in the morning, it comes through, and it is loaded down with the waste and coolant coming from the nuclear plant. It goes
Oh,
by the house.
so that you don't have the passenger line. You got the
You got the freight.
transports. He
Mhm.
got
I,
like
I think there's a
the
point that it transfers. You can switch rails somewhere around here,
mhm,
but we all knew growing up when it was coming through, and because we'd all make the jokes about the Simpsons and Three Odd Fish and stuff.
mhm.
So, you know, yeah, we have one train line, and God knows what all goes across it. So,
Yep. It's like, yeah, some of that moonshine sure tastes like gasoline. That's how strong it is. And that was the one thing, because they was up here. It's like, I remember the episode where they were saying that they came up with a better form of gasoline, and was based upon ethanol,
mhm,
and the formula was an offshoot of Jesse's moonshine.
mhm,
And the way that they got it to him, because they knew that that he made a special batch of moonshine, the way that they got it across state lines and everything, and away from Roscoe and Boss Hog, was the fact that it was in the gas tank. Nobody going
yep,
to check the gas tank if the car is running. They just go, it's
mhm,
gasoline, and that's how they got it across. And then they siphoned it. When they got there, it's like, well, where's the stuff? It's like, well, we just have to siphon this gas tank. And they went from the gas tank to the newer engine that they wanted to test it on, and everything tested perfectly fine.
yeah.
Wow.
And it's funny we brought up the Dukes of Hazzard because, while my wife was in Nashville with me the last couple of days, I make it a tradition to torture her with terrible sci-fi movies.
Mhm.
And one of the ones we watched had John, no, uh, Clark's dad from Smallville, Bo Duke. He was
Yeah.
the evil
Oh,
oil. He was the evil
John
oil
Snyder.
guy.
John
Snyder.
Snyder.
John Schneider.
Yeah, he was in it. It's just funny you brought that up.
Yep.
He who
She's
no more need ever be named.
Yeah, well, put it this way: you could torture her another way. Make her make
never
her
watched
watch
the
the
news.
television. Make her watch the television series of Enos.
Oh
You
no.
know he had his own show, right?
Yes, I vaguely
The
remember
the
that.
the
I
the,
didn't.
the,
I
the,
never
the, the
watched it.
country cop in a big city.
Mm.
Wait a
I
minute.
was
Didn't
like,
we already do that with McLeod?
yeah, they try to do it with Enos too. They try to do
McLeod
it
did
with
it
Enos,
better.
huh?
McLeod did it better.
Yes, way better. And Parallax is here. It's like, I'm not good to ride the bus, but I prefer the van.
There are certain buses I have no trouble with. And so long as I can get to where, it's like, so long as I can get to where I need to go, um, before Courtney and I now, we time certain buses by the degree we know, but on certain times of day, we don't ride certain buses because the evil, stupid, crazy. There are certain buses you have to be careful of because at certain times of day, you get the evil, stupid, what we call the evil, stupid, crazy.
Mm.
And they all shop at the Jewels at 75th and Stone. So it's really interesting. But yeah, there are certain times, like we know certain bus lines because they're high schools or whatnot where the kids are getting on and off. If we're doing heavy shopping, we know we have an idea of when they're trying to get to school and when they're trying to get out of school. So it's like, okay, we have between this time of day and this time of day, you know. Um, When we go to local market, it's like, okay, it's a Sunday. If we leave this early, we're gonna hit all the church ladies, you know. So, and it's a 5 minute ride. But when every other person on the bus is the church lady and they all feel the need to preach, and half of them don't know half of what they're preaching, and the other half probably had to take a little too much of their blood pressure medication. You know, and they all want to be the lead speaker. You know, and prophesize and whatnot. So it's like, okay, they're just, you know, so this Sunday we're gonna have to deal with the church ladies. Because it's like we have to get there early enough and get back so that we can be ready to go. But yeah, so we're gonna have to deal with the church ladies this morning.
Oh, Donna.
I feel bad because I'm a Chicago kid. I'm a city brat. I grew up, if I couldn't walk to it or get there on the bus, I didn't go. You know, I just, if I couldn't get, if I had, when I started going to Amundsen High School, which was predominantly white school in a white neighborhood, and friends would say, "Oh, we're doing this." It's like, how easy can I get there on the bus? Well, it's like, you know what? Y'all have fun. Because, you know, I gotta go from wherever y'all gonna be on the north side all the way back to the Robert Taylors.
Mm-hmm.
No.
They don't know that trick. They don't know that trick.
And it was a funny thing because there's a time when I used to walk down. You could walk the shore. You get into the underneath the ramp at the Hollywood entrance of Lakeshore Drive, and you used to be able to walk that shore all the way to North Avenue.
He only did like a 15-minute bus ride, and he's like,
please! You took the 6 from you walked over to the Field Museum on 11th, grabbed the 6, and then
came back over to the Museum of Science and Industry.
To Science and Industry. You even got on the bus where by the time you hit 51st Street, I get it. By the time you hit 51st Street, most of the white folks are gone. That, depending on the time of day, that might be a little crazy.
In the 80s?
No, actually.
In the 80s?
Yeah, no, you're talking 80s. So
no. Because depending on the time of day, he will be seeing his own. But people in Hyde Park are crazy. I'm sorry.
You do get some interesting people. As much money and political and social power they have, you get some really interesting individuals in Hyde Park.
Yep.
You know, Hyde Park was built primarily for the University of Chicago. Mm-hmm. That's what anchors Hyde Park. And that's where the city gets so much of its social, political, and economic power from. In fact, where we live is considered Hyde Park Township. Hyde Park has so much power. They've eaten up most of South Shore. And if you look on certain real estate documents, it's listed as Hyde Park Township.
He said, fortunately, I spoke Spanish, so he had. I know what time of day he was at. He had to deal with all those maids and stuff that was coming in.
The people coming in and going out.
Mm-hmm. I know exactly what time of day it is, and you know, in like the early 90s, you know, when I was in high school, I had to, you know, during the summer, I had to make the long trek from where I live, kind of like where I'm at right now, all the way to Loyola University.
The Outlier building downtown, or all the way on the Red Line? Oh, the Red Line stop.
We're talking about almost towards the end of the line, close to Evanston.
Yeah, I was about to say, okay.
So you have to imagine, it's like if I didn't catch the 147 express coming back home, that ride on that 151 is not easy. It's not easy.
We- like I said, you get some interesting people on inner city buses, and Sundays, it's and what drives me crazy is the older ladies, the church ladies that get on the bus. Now me, I get on the bus, I want to find a place to sit down, put my music on, pull out my phone, play a game, read some Kindle, depending on what bus I'm on, how long I'm going to be. I don't want to be bothered. But there's always that woman who gets on and she insists that the whole bus acknowledge her existence. How y'all doing today? I'm like, okay, let me just say, I'm gonna just keep
You go,
doing.
they get on the bus. Good morning, everybody. I'm like, okay, hi, bye. Cliff, you just don't know.
Oh
There's
no,
a
I do know.
reason
We do
my
that in the Walmart.
you won't do you can't do that here in Chicago.
No, they can
My
see it probably be natural for them. It's like, oh, this
my
is Walmart type stuff.
my wife hated going to the grocery store with my mom when we first got married because and as she said, Cliff, it's a family reunion. Like, yeah, down here you go to the grocery store and you run into every cousin you've ever had. And
Oh
you're
my
like, oh, how
goodness.
you doing? Oh, how's your mama? Oh, they died. Oh no.
Oh.
And so a trip to go get, milk and cookies turns into a 2-hour trip to the grocery store.
Because your mom has to get the scuttlebutt of everything.
That's the one thing I am happy about the majority when they close the projects down. My Miss Annie's place in the projects was like the core of the Hay Goods. Once that went, that core kind of dissolved, and some of them are living in the suburbs and whatnot. I if they're on the buses or in the stores where I am, we're not speaking, and I'm happy. I
Mhm.
just, every once in a while I might run into somebody I know. But even then it's like, oh well, here's my bus. Gotta go. Have
I have I have accidentally on purpose not seen quite a few cousins when I go to the grocery store just so I want to leave. So yeah. This is the level of small town parts of where we live still are. When I was in high school and the
A little bit of
McDonald's
free.
opened in town,
Okay.
the line for McDonald's was a mile long for the drive-through. Even though 15 minutes up the road was another McDonald's. It was the fact we had one in town. We can go to McDonald's here.
why we need to go out there and we can just ride over. See,
I wonder if
my
they got anything
Okay,
different. I
Clem,
was like,
it's
no,
good
it's
to see you.
close.
I was like, what? You coming here for a hamburger? It's like, yeah. It was like, how's Auntie Mom doing? She's doing all right. This, that, the other. It's like by the time they purchase their hamburger and everything, it's about 45 minutes, and then they still got to wait for the hamburger to get done. That's another 30 minutes because everybody's yelling back and forth, talking to one another.
And you hear it all the time. I know who's your mom and daddy. I know you. I known you when it was this big. Like, oh God. My
that's better than when we were kids. The most dreaded thing you could hear if you were out with friends and you were in those preteen to teen years was being a little stupid, and all of a sudden somebody would say your name,
Mhm.
followed by, "I know your mama ain't raised you like this." It's like, oh shit, I am now dead. Because that was the you did not want to hear that. You did not want to hear your name followed by, "I know your mama didn't raise you like that," because you knew by the time, no matter how fast you got home, whoever that was, even though they didn't have cell phones back then, they had ancient voodoo technology.
Hmm.
Black women had ancient voodoo technology. I believe this because I don't care how fast you got home, how short a trip it was, by the time you got in the door, at least that person had told six other people, and they didn't all told your mama.
High school was hell down here because the attendance lady used to work with my mom and went to high school with her.
Oh no.
The principal was my mom's basketball coach,
Oh no.
and the vice principal was he was just getting started in his career as an educator when the schools integrated.
Oh.
And my grandmother was the head of the white schools cafeterias. And when they
Oh.
took them over, she saw how, for lack of a better term, how shitty the black schools food and cafeterias were. She made them bring it all up to their standards of the
Yeah.
white schools. And because of that, my vice principal thought my grandmother was God. And so if I didn't have a smile on my face walking down the high school, boy, what would your grandmama think of you? Like,
The
I
old
couldn't do I couldn't do anything. I'd get home and grandma would be on the phone or mom would be, Cliff, what happened at school today? I
I
was tardy to study hall, mom. I'm sorry. Yeah,
you know,
yes.
that you had to walk that every day. Happy, I am happy and blessed. Or somebody would be like, Clifford.
Look, you don't. My senior year, the attendance lady who was friends with my mom retired, and it was like the heavens parted. And it's like, oh, I can get away with stuff now. So
At least nobody, at least it doesn't sound like any of your mom's old boyfriends.
No, but I can see it being awkward. It's like, who is this young lady that the principal saw you with that made you late for class? Like,
well,
what?
yeah.
I was
Well,
with no one's like, don't lie to me, don't lie to me. I was told this.
my mom did date the mayor of Hernando, Mississippi, where we lived for a little while.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh
so
no.
that happened, and then when she got a little bit older and her husband passed away, she my mom graduate was the she graduated from high school the year they integrated.
Okay.
That's Mama still would go to her reunions every year, and it was a reunion of when the schools were still integrated. I mean, segregated. And I would make
Oh.
fun of her and say, "Did you have fun at your clan meeting?" And she met an old high school boyfriend there, and they started dating again. And so I had to hear all about that when my mom's in her 70s.
Oh no. See,
And
I
she's
would
like,
be
Cliff, you don't
horrible.
know. He was almost your daddy. You just don't know. I'm like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
See, I'm one of them evil people because I'd be like, so tell me, do y'all put your teeth in before you get kissing or you take
No,
them out?
see, Mama wasn't too good. She started to get sick and her dementia was kicking in. Wasn't too good with her cell phone all the time. I would get those texts.
Oh no.
And we found out, my wife and I found out that her boyfriend was married. And we're like, Mom, he's married. She goes, I'm not dating his wife.
Oh, oh my goodness.
Yep.
I
Yep.
Cliff was living a soap opera, and
declare.
It
Oh
we
really
could call it
was.
the other side of the hill.
You don't know. We would dread if somebody knocked on the door, we didn't know who it was. We're like, it's the wife.
my.
It's the wife. We're fixing to all die.
In a little
Yeah.
southern town, that's not something you can hide that easily.
No, she didn't care. And when I felt kind of bad because we put her on the the Life 360 app where you can keep up with people on your phone and all that.
Mm-hmm.
When she got sick, we put that on her phone where we would know where she was if something happened. And he would come into town and they would go exactly 3 miles from the house to the Super 8 Motel down here. And we knew because we saw him on the app, and she would come back home, and I'd be like, "Mom, what you do?" Oh, we just went driving through the Delta. We love to go down there and see where all the casinos are built now. And it used to be farmland, Cliff. I'm like,
To
uh
go
huh,
catch crawdads.
uh huh.
No, he used to be
And it was just amazing to
farmland.
me
I'm like,
because she was like so straight faced when I was like, how many times did she lie to me through my life and I never realized it? Um,
I'm sorry.
well,
I'm,
you are busted up laughing.
it's
just
the truth.
And Carl say that you bringing back memories to him living in a small town, but that's a small town living, and
It
people always
is.
look at me kind of straight. It's like, why don't you come back to the south? It's like, no, that's not the type of living for me.
I don't know
No,
if I could.
it's
People going to be like, country life is too much for you. Time to take you back to the city.
yeah. I don't know. It was an interesting few years when she first moved in with us, and I found out all of these things I didn't want to know about my mom. So,
Oh, oh,
but yeah,
sweetie. It's like the I'm sorry, I should not be laughing, but it's like the roles have switched. You know, because
now,
usually it's Mama finding out about what Junior's up to.
yeah, and during COVID, it was so sweet. He would come over for a visit, and they'd go sit in the backyard across from one another where nobody would get each other sick. And there's this strange man that I don't know that I know who he is in the backyard, and I'm just like, I'm not explaining this to my children.
That
I'm
was
just
my
not.
oldest. That
Mhm,
I
that
saw.
that dark blob that
mhm.
walked past.
Yep.
That was my oldest.
Yeah,
I'm just up here, just like the horror of trying to explain something like that to your kids. It's like, don't worry about grandma. Grandma's okay.
hmm
She just
Don't worry
knocking
about
boots.
what's going on in the backyard. Everything is okay.
She
Just
just
go find
knocking.
somewhere else to
It's
play.
nature. It's nature. It's how babies get made when you're not
I was
old.
like,
They're just and they're like, but can she have babies, Daddy? No, they're just doing it for the fun. Yeah.
It's like
he
technically she could, but
I
the
don't
likelihood is
want
no.
to.
You poor Cliff. I'm so
It's like,
sorry.
oh, it's like
I was trying to
I
find
wouldn't
it
tease him
out.
with
He
it. I'm
just
just going based upon biology. Biology
It's
says like
man.
technically she still could, but the
Look,
likelihood is
hey,
no.
if I make it that far, I hope I can still rise to the occasion. But you know, I'm at least gonna be smart enough to text the right person when I talk about
hey baby, the other day, you just had me all worked up. I had to take 3 heart pills just to come down. Do that again.
No, I'm not going to do that to him. I'm not going to do that to him. I'm not going to do
it.
that to him. It's like Cliff's my friend. I'm not going to do that to
On
him.
a
I could just imagine the chat.
I'm now. I kind of now want to write like sexting with older folks. I want to get on Facebook and do a whole thing of it.
I might have Mama's phone somewhere around here. I'll send it to you.
No, it's okay.
For reference, but
I have a very fertile imagination.
okay.
It's been a
All right.
while. Been a
No,
while,
no,
but
please
I have a
stop. You
very.
know how my mind works. I don't want to blurt out anything.
But on a less awkward note for me,
Yeah.
on our while the wife and I were in Nashville, aside from the bad movies I made her watch and doctor's trips,
Oops, he froze again.
we finally got to watch the first season of Sandman. So
Ooh,
Okay.
on
what did you
Netflix.
think of it?
So yay! I'm only I'm only a few years behind in watching things. Then, um,
Oh, you're further ahead than I am.
I liked it. It's a very visually pretty show.
It is a beautiful. It is beautifully done.
Um,
They really do honor the source material.
they did a real good job. The guy who I don't know his name that plays Morpheus,
Yes,
he doesn't look like what I would imagine Morpheus to look like, but he sounds just like him. When I'm reading it, I'm like,
this is who
that's what
you
he
would
sounds like.
figure he would look like.
Yeah.
He would at least sound
Um,
like he's a little prettier than Morpheus.
Yeah, Death.
But he's skinny. I love Death. The girl who
She was
plays
a
Death,
she
I
didn't come
adored
across as, I don't want to use the term bubbly, but that's what my wife said. She didn't seem as bubbly as she thought she would be.
her.
But because my wife hasn't read Sandman, she's listened to the audio dramas
Oh,
on
okay.
Audible. Um,
And it's a different performance in the audio drama
mm,
than it
yeah,
is.
so she was hoping she was that was in her mind. I liked the only problem I really had with the show was they kind of made it really convoluted when they were trying to stick all three stories at the end together into the dollhouse.
Yeah,
And that I was like, okay, they could
they
have.
could have.
And my first thought was they didn't know if they were going to get a season two, so they were just cramming everything in.
Yeah.
Um, I liked the fact that they had the other Sandman in there.
Oh
I
yeah.
like that Lyda and Hector Hall were there, and Daniel was born. Um, I liked that Matthew Cable was the Crow. There was a lot I liked about it. But yeah, the ending of it was a little too convoluted for me. They could have kept the Corinthian Fiddler's Green and the halls and all that separate, and it would have worked. I think it would have worked better.
I
But
did like the
overall,
guy who played Fiddler's Green, though.
oh yes,
I adored him. I also
yes,
loved Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer.
hmm
I
yeah,
really loved her. I love anytime she's on screen. I'm like, yeah, baby. Okay,
yeah.
you need to just stand there and look pretty. That's all.
The
That's all you need to do.
the when he went to hell, it was really cool. I like the way they visualized their fight. Um, my wife, oh, she just openly said, she goes, I didn't like the fact that he didn't fight the demon and just humiliate him. I was like
Well,
he did in
but
the story. I was like, well, this worked well too.
yes,
Um, and they could have had John Constantine in it. They didn't have to make Jenna Coleman Joanna Constantine. They could have stuck with that.
well, she
But
was
she did a
in the
good
book.
job.
She's his his ancestress is Joanna Constantine.
Yeah. So if they would have stuck with her being the ancestor and actually had John Constantine, I think it would work better.
Had
But it was
John is
good.
yeah. It's like okay, I don't get the gender swap for this, but
It,
I
I
was
don't know if
willing to
that
go with
was
everything
like,
else. It's like okay, I'm not going to burn your
you know,
house down.
I don't know if that was a diversity call or if it's the fact that John Constantine, the movie rights and TV rights are with a different studio.
That
Kind of
could
like
also be it.
Batman, Bruce Wayne could never show up in Smallville for that same reason.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it was a really good show. If season two actually comes out, I'm looking forward to it. I think season two though will be further than I currently have read in Sandman in the last few years.
They are at work on season 2 as we speak.
Mhm.
So
But overall, I thought it
it
was.
has been given. What happened was when certain things came came out, they had
Mhm,
started getting things for season 2 together and then put it on a halt
mhm,
because Netflix had to decide what side they were going to take or if they were going to just kind of act like this doesn't exist.
mhm. Yeah.
Because it wasn't just Netflix. It was because their decision would decide. They had to also get up and tell the actors what they could and couldn't talk about.
Mhm.
So it was a whole big thing, and I think Netflix wanted to make sure that however they came down on the right side, and they
Mhm.
shut things down. So they are going ahead now, but they have basically removed gaming
Yeah.
from the production.
Right.
In fact, the few things I've seen with the actors, he's not even mentioned.
Mhm.
So they may say source material, but they don't. He has become Voldemort, he who must not be
Mhm.
named. Uh,
Right.
and
Which is understandable. I just hope that the show doesn't suffer for it because it was very good the way it was. I liked when the little boy was dreaming about being the Sandman that on the that computer was all the B-list Flash villains. I was like, that's pretty awesome. I like that.
They've got enough source material.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who read the comics, Gaiman himself, in with the compilation
Mm-hmm.
volumes, was writing things,
Mm-hmm.
additional information and stuff. So they have a whole
Mm-hmm.
crap load of stuff that they can use. It's
Yeah.
just who gets to make that. If he is no longer guiding that particular ship of state,
Mm-hmm.
um, who gets to make decisions. But also, they've got a group of actors who now understand their roles,
Mm-hmm.
that it's going to be hard for someone to come in and try to, if somebody, they may find themselves facing a bunch of Christopher Lees and
Mm-hmm.
Ian McKellen, because
Mm-hmm.
even Peter Jackson, um, if he made changes to the script,
Mm-hmm.
If Christopher Lee was in that scene, he'd be right there with his book. Ian
Yeah.
McKellen, right there with the book. you know, so there were always those voices in the cast
Mm-hmm.
who were very much like source material, source material, source material.
Yeah, I mean, they
Um,
didn't they didn't have to plug in the House of Mysteries and the House of Secrets into the show, and they did. And they even had Cain killing Abel every time they showed up. So I mean, they're sticking to it a lot better than I thought they would already.
they are respecting the source material,
Mm-hmm.
which I give them credit for. Um,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. Since we're talking Netflix shows, there are two Netflix shows, anime, I'm going to say don't bother with.
Uh-oh.
One is Wolf King. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. I got about 4 episodes in, and then I was like, I'm done. I'm sorry. This is too much of a headache. It's y'all are going, I get where you're trying to go, but and it could be just generational. I just get real exhausted real fast with this new formula of you're the person who's supposed to save it all, but everybody's against you.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the people who should be your allies. And nobody is telling you what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just, and then you send the people who really you send the people who really need at least somebody with some wisdom to guide them. You send them all, you send the idiots off on their own. So there's nobody with wisdom guiding the ship. Um, it's like, okay, maybe it's a generational thing, but to me, it was like, okay, this is a headache. I'm sorry. I could not. I told my youngest, I said, no, I'm sorry. I can't. I just can't. Also, Moonrise. I got, I was getting so irritated with Moonrise. I just skipped to the last 3 episodes. It was like, okay, I want to know how this ends. I just don't care enough about I just don't care about the characters to take the journey. I just want to get to the end of the line. And that was what I did. And yes, I will give the spoiler. It's the friggin' AI. It's the friggin' it at its heart, and you don't realize it because they don't give you any sort of clear cut anything. So even when they give you information, they're not really giving you information.
Mm-hmm.
So you get half the story, or you get a quarter of the story. And it jumped. It kept time jumping those first couple of episodes. So it would take a while to figure out where you were because of the way they jumped time. And I just was like, okay, you know what? You all you would have to do is just say the present. And then
Mm-hmm.
if it's going to be a flashback, just say da 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 whatever date or
Mm-hmm.
how many years ago in the past, so I know where I am.
Right.
Instead of halfway through that scene going, oh, they jumped to the past.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now it's like, and like I said, maybe it's a generational thing. I'm 64. You know, I came to being with the Robotech dudes. Give me some classic. Hey, Pat LaBour is on. I got a memory stick with Pat LaBour in an early Pokemon movie, so that tells you where I'm at. But they were just so. I am very happy that I then went and watched the last 5 episodes of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood to make me feel better. Afterwards, it's like, at least this is a story that makes sense and I like these characters. We know watching, whoa, what happened?
You got blurry.
I don't know what happened. Hold on.
Now you're getting back into focus.
Okay, hello. Can you see? There
Yeah.
you go. Sorry. Then you went green. Okay, I went Martian there. Beep beep. But it's like, I really, I didn't like any of the characters. They were the people that if I was in that group, I would have taken a crowbar to someone's head. And maybe that's the thing. Now there are so many stories where, this is the chosen one, but everybody hates them. Even the people who are supposed to be their allies treat them like crap. And it's like, really? That's what you want to be?
Yeah, there's a trend in a lot of I've noticed it in a lot of modern anime where you make they're I don't know if they're doing it on purpose or just I'm aged out of some of these animes where they make the core group of characters completely unlikable. Like I like the anime Solo Leveling.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
All the people around the main character are just so completely unlikable. Just like if you all die and he survives, I'm okay with it. And it's the same, and it's been that way with a few anime I've watched lately, or the plot trope of we have one character that's so completely overpowered, but he's not the main character, so his only role is to get beaten by the main villain to make the main character look better. I can't
Okay.
I can't stand that because like I watch the anime Jujutsu Kaisen.
I haven't watched it yet. It's on my list.
The teacher on the show, Gojo, is like pre-crisis Earth One Superman level of power.
Okay.
No one can touch him on the show. But they did all of this just to lead up to the main villain killing him. And I'm like, you've spent 50 episodes showing me this guy's unstoppable.
I mean,
You can't do that. I don't get it. I don't get it because now I'm like this makes no sense to me. It's like it was like back then when Superman is like, oh, I have to sneeze and I have to fly into space and I blow out the sun, but I'm supposed to believe the toy man's a challenge to you. I'm like, seriously, what? So it's it's the same way with this. I'm just like there's no believable way this character could be beaten, but you're using him as the setup guy. I don't understand it.
See, I guess that's the difference between you and me because I have figured out ways for normal people to beat Kal-El easily.
I mean, like if it's the Spectre or Dr. Fate, yes, but
No, I'm talking about normal people using science to beat down
roll my
Superman.
eyes a little bit at the whole Batman's magic belt full of mystery. I'm like, come on.
No, no. I'm talking about using actual hardcore science and
This
actually
dude can
being
fly to the
Superman.
sun and back. You're not gonna no. But it's one of those things that kind of bugs me.
Again, that's
like,
what makes characters like Toyman and all these lower grade villains that Superman has more palatable of when you actually put actual science to it. Yeah, Toyman's not going to create a toy that has some kryptonite ray on it and beat Superman. No. But if you get the right type of scientists and have them to create a prison-like building when Superman comes
Mm,
up in it and it blocks all radiation from the sun and only makes it red,
mm.
he's a normal human being. You could beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, but
Now, I
that's
didn't mean
very
to call out the Toy Man because I will be honest, I like the Toy Man. I like Superman's wacky villains. He
Yeah,
was just the first one that came to mind. I like the Toy Man. I did not like him in the animated series because they made him
they made him
creepy.
too jokey.
And if you watch the first Death of Superman movie, he was so creepy I had to turn the movie off. I couldn't deal with it.
dang.
But I like the wacky Toy Man. I will admit that.
Just
He
be
was just the
happy you
first one that
didn't
came to
see
mind.
him in Supergirl, the TV series Supergirl.
Okay.
Now her little sidekick was his son in that.
Right.
Did he actually show
That's
up?
Toyman Jr. Toyman
Yeah.
Jr. In the comic books. That was Toyman Jr. in the comic
Yeah,
book.
did the Toy Man actually show up in the show?
Yes.
Trying to remember that.
I never saw the
And Toyman
Supergirl series.
the son had to beat the father.
Ooh, that would have been interesting.
I don't remember how I saw that. I've talked about before. I gave up on Supergirl when Bro L showed up. So I don't remember much of the show anymore.
Okay.
I just
I,
didn't
Yeah,
like how they did Kryptonians in that show too, because like
when Dude Bro Monel showed up, I was out. So I don't remember the show very
the
well after
only
that.
thing that saved the whole thing with Monel was the fact that they did Mixoplick.
Mm,
And Mixoplick fell in love with Kara. I was like, oh, this is not going to bode well. And then because there was no Clark,
hmm
the world was wide open for him to do whatever and for her to figure out how to beat him. It's like, oh, you got a lovesick Mixoplick after you, and the only
imagine.
thing that he wants to do is just marry you. I'm like, ew.
The episode of Superman the animated series where Mr. Mxyzptlk showed up for the first time gets watched in our household on repeat. My girls think it is so hilarious when he's just constantly showing up and immediately disappearing because he gets tricked into saying his name. I love it. They love it. It that's another example of just a wacky character, but works so well when put with the right hero. Like Batmite worked really well with Silver and Bronze Age Batman, but Batmite wouldn't work with modern day Batman.
Batmite would hate
It,
modern day Batman.
yes, it just wouldn't work. Just like people they don't talk about it as much, but Aquaman had his own version of Batmite back in the
Mhm.
Silver Age. Modern Aquaman wouldn't work with that. It's just a certain way that you can write characters, and people who understand Superman can still do that with the wackiness and still try to have quote unquote serious Superman like they try to make nowadays. So it's a little bit different, but like Batmite cannot work with modern day Batman. It just doesn't work the same way anymore. Which is sad because I like Batmite.
Batmite
I
was
like
the
my heroes
ultimate
the wacky.
fanboy. That's what they
Mm-hmm.
kept playing on. He's the ultimate fanboy from the fifth dimension, and he was
Yes.
having that to be like, oh, Bruce is in trouble. Let me give him this power to get him out of it. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. It's wacky characters are just they're good for comics.
I
And I wish they'd be embraced more.
I love good wacky character. In fact, I posted I posted Jester and the Dust of Deliciousness to the
Mm.
group. I gotta post um, Not and Jester at the Temple because that is wacky, chaotic. These are two straight up chaotic characters in D&D. Because in D&D you have your lawful, you have your chaotic, and then
Neutral.
you have
Neutral.
your lawful, neutral, and chaotic. These two, chaotic, and when they get together, fluffer nutter. That's all I gotta say, fluffer nutter. But
Mhm.
Thinks Batman is a guy.
You know, but that's an accurate description of Bat. That's an accurate description of
A
Bat
Bat
Knight.
Mite, yes. Oh,
You know,
night,
Right?
night,
I
Donna,
blame
night, Coral.
I still blame Frank Miller for all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Dark Knight Returns, it
And
made what they call the Bat God because it was Bat, senior citizen Bruce Wayne somehow beat the shit out of Superman. It's like, okay. And after that, oh, he can do anything. I'm like, man, I saw him getting hit in the head by the calculator and knocked out. I don't want to hear this.
That's the one.
the calculator was like, "Oh, that kick was 0.2 seconds off." Pow! I was like, "Whoa!" I'm like,
Yes.
wait, hold on. It's like he's that precise where he's like, "Okay, dodge." That was 2 seconds off and hit him. I was like,
Yes. And he did it while
Uh oh.
wearing that goofy old 1980s calculator on his chest plate because
"Yes."
calculator back then had a cool costume,
With the
just like
old
Calendar
Texas Instrument calculator.
Man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I used to love
And
those.
Calendar Man had his calendar numbers all over him and all of his calendar themed henchmen and stuff. And then the Long Halloween came along and he was Hannibal Caliber Man after that. It's like,
Oh
no,
no.
you're too creepy. And then the Arkham games came out and he was locked up in the basement of Arkham. And if you go down there, he would just ramble about the weirdest stuff. And you're like, oh, this isn't fun anymore. This is creepy. I'm leaving. But yeah, old school Calendar Man and Calculator were awesome. Even though
Modern day calculator is not that bad. It just they made them too
I do
serious.
like I do like the anti-oracle calculator. That's a cool idea.
Hmm.
But man, he had purple spandex with Texas Instruments on his chest. You can't beat that. You cannot beat that.
Oh God. No,
And
I
you
just
see, now you want me to do like a kind of
I
like
just
a
pictured
monologue
Julie
on.
Newmar in purple spandex with the Texas Instrument calculator on her chest. I don't know why it popped into my head. It's like Mr. Stay Puft. It's just, I believe there is no defense against Mr. Stay Puft because he will just in the worst times just pop in your brain and
Mhm.
ruin your day.
If that was the case, there's technically no defense against ambush bug. He
Yeah.
just he's just going to be there at the very worst time for you to deal with him.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I mean, that's his claim to fame. It's not that he's a bad guy. He's just one of those wacky characters that's just like, oh, they call me ambush bug for a reason. I just pop up at the wrong time where you just need X, Y, and Z,
One of
and
my
it's big.
favorite ambush bugs.
Stop. If you wanted it, you
If
would
I
have been
wanted
dead
it, you'd be
already.
dead already.
Yeah, one of my favorite ambush bug scenes was in not the new 52, but 52 the series
Hmm.
when he was going to join that offshoot Justice League that was going to start up. And he was just the most annoying thing ever, standing there next to Super Chief with his buffalo head and everything. It's like
Hmm.
this is too perfect. I just can't.
People don't remember Super Chief. They don't remember Super Chief and all the
No.
other, offshoot of the families here. Because Super
Yeah.
Chief is an offshoot of the Superman family.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
With his bison head,
Hmm.
his stereotypical Native American moccasins and everything. Yeah.
He had a actual bison.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the
Yeah.
old school Indian bison head type
Yeah.
headdress.
Oh, okay. It wasn't his head. It was just the
Hmm.
headdress.
Hmm.
Kind of like the old Flintstones water buffalo.
You're right, kind
Hmm.
of like that.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
very much like
Yeah.
the Flintstones water buffalo lodge,
And we
which was
no,
cool.
the one of you were talking about the line of if I wanted you you'd be dead already. And since I talked about it the last time, in the original Hush, when Poison Ivy was controlling Superman and Batman was fighting him, Jeff Loeb wrote it where in Batman's internal monologue, because we don't have thought balloons anymore, we just have caption boxes. He was talking about Clark, Clark is holding back even like this, because even with my preparation, he could suck all the air out of the room before I even had a chance to blink. And he was acknowledging if Superman wanted to, this wouldn't be a fight.
Yeah.
And I'm like that. That's it needs to be done. It needs to be said like that because it's the truth. I mean, if it was as simple as kryptonite A, B, and C, everyone would do that, and they don't. It's and I really like that about Superman and Hush, as opposed to Frank Miller writing Superman in Batman. It's just it's acknowledging, yes, Bruce could win, but really the only reason he wins is because Clark's letting him.
It still doesn't. It still doesn't beat Flashpoint. Flashpoint. One true Superman comes down. It pays Thomas a visit. Hits him once. Put him inside of a wall.
And that
Thomas is like,
was
look,
emo
it's like he's
Superman
like,
when he
look,
was
I'm not
all
trying. It's
skinny
like
and
I'm not
stuff.
trying to fight him. So whatever he wants, he's going to get.
Mhm.
Which reminds me, there's a movie you guys might want to check out, Brightburn. What if Superman was was meant to be
Psychotic.
evil? Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. Holy crap a moly. That I was like, okay. Yeah, I'm kind
I
of
was
happy
not a fan of it.
he's, our he's our friendly neighborhood Superman, because that would be
Yeah.
just I watched that movie and it's like, oh man, that would
There's
just
supposed to be a sequel to it
Yeah,
coming out soon.
okay, because they've been talking about a sequel since 2016
Mm-hmm.
when that came
It's
out.
been a while.
So yeah,
but
it's been a while. It's been a while.
but the whole purpose of Brightburn was really to get people reacquainted to a already established character of Ultraman. That's what
Mhm.
Brightburn was. Ultraman.
Okay.
Earth 3 Superman. And if you went back to what was it, Crime Syndicate, this recent incarnation of the 6-issue Crime Syndicate, they even go back and pretty much said that he had pretty much a whole Brightburn origin. That the
Mhm.
kids had to lie to him about his powers.
Mhm.
And the reason why he doesn't trust humans anymore is because the people who he considered as his guardians lied to him.
Mhm.
Lied to him in such a way that he just like, you know what, I can't trust no one.
That's I'm trying to remember. It was, I want to say it was the early 2000s or it might be the late 90s. Marvel did a Supreme Power. It's kind of like a Marvel Knights esque version of Squadron Supreme.
Well,
And
it
Baby
was a rendition.
Hyperion was growing up, and it was the same thing because he was in like a government facility that was disguised like a Kansas farmhouse, and his parents were actors. And he just one day when he was a little boy, he just looked at it and goes, "I know you're not my mom. I can see down at the end of the field. I can see the men with the guns and the fences, and I can see the walls beyond that. And one day I'm going to leave here, and none of you are going to stop me." And mom and dad like lived in fear of him from then on.
But that whole series was a reincarnation of the
Mm.
original Squadron Supreme series, except more modernized
Yeah.
because they had to. I forgot the universe that they were set in, because it got all corporate, because all of them was led by a corporate sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the wizard was like a spokesperson for like a cola company. Dr. Spectrum was involved with this other scientific project. The only one that really they had to keep close tabs on was Hyperion and Power Princess Sardra.
Mm-hmm.
And Sardra was considered a goddess,
Yeah.
almost Thor-like in that
Yeah, that
universe.
was back when Marvel and DC both were trying to make as many image-like books as they could. 'Cause, the corporate sponsorship and all that was straight out of Youngblood. Back in there, and it's like, don't do this. It's not that good. I promise. Stop.
Again, it only worked for Youngblood only because
Mm,
it was done by young and stupid people who couldn't write,
mhm.
and it started to work, and then it just fell on its face.
Is that
I
the new trend in writing these days? Because I just noticed like there are things I'm sitting or going, okay, there are seminars that different people have on characterization. Final Draft does seminars on things like characterization or how to properly plot. It was I guess it was why J.J. Abrams always used to bother me because he's really good at the WTF, especially early on when he was doing Lost and Heroes the first couple of seasons. Really good at those WTF moments, but he couldn't stick the landing.
He never sticks to landing.
It's like he's really good at coming up with these. Holy crap! What was that? But to bring the story to fruition so that you're satisfied at the end that you feel you've been told a complete story. It's like but and
Oh,
yet there are guys out there who think he's golden, and it's like,
it's
well, maybe it's just me.
a lot of it, I think, goes to there are a lot of people who have really good beginning ideas and a really good ending, but the middle part they don't know how to get from A to B. Or with comics, a lot of times what will happen, and it's different now because it's so much more corporate, but like I use Grant Morrison and Jeff Johns as my two examples. Grant Morrison is a great, great, great creative person. He has great ideas. He can make great books. But once he became Grant Morrison, his editors quit being editors. They're like, oh, it's Grant, it's good. So because like I loved Grant Morrison's JLA. I thought it was really awesome up until the end, and then it was like, what is happening? What is going on? I've been following this from the entire series, and I still don't know what's happening. And what it is no one like, no, stay in between this lane and just go with it. And Jeff Johns was the same way when he first got started, and there was people like James Robinson and David Goyer and some of his editors. They were like, "That's a really good idea you got right there, Jeff, for Hal Jordan. Let's keep it in this lane, and it'll be good." Once he became successful, he didn't have that anymore, and then we got Flash Rebirth, which made no damn sense because there was nobody sitting there saying, "No, stay in your lane." He was like, "Oh, it's Jeff, it'll be good."
See, that's what I
Or
don't
Flat,
get.
or like with Flashpoint, it's like, Jeff, do an Age of Apocalypse for DC. Okay, does it have to make sense? Oh, if you write it, it'll be great. Half the story didn't make any damn sense. I collected every issue of it because I was such a Jeff Johns fan. If it said Flashpoint on the cover of it in any form, I bought it.
Okay.
I have no idea what was happening, and I read the whole damn thing twice. So it's a lot of times they just no one's there to funnel the idea where it needs to go, and that's what happens a lot. Or they don't know how to get from A to B, which like I guess is what happens to J.J. Abrams. I've never liked any of his stuff enough to watch it, so I couldn't tell you.
I agree with you to a certain point. It really
Mm-hmm.
depends on that writer. With one of the things
Mm-hmm.
that I constantly talk about Tom King during this Wonder Woman bullshit. You know, start out with something that's like, okay, it might have some legs, but he just off his rocker, way off his rocker. And then you look at his past works, it's like, okay, with what he did with all these other characters, he did a pretty decent job, and then others who just fall off the ledge and just like, what is this? With Grant Morrison, I have to disagree with you because the thing with Grant Morrison, and I think this is the problem, when he got the Grant Morrison name,
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that always happened is that he always wrote things where it's like, I'm going to take his X-Men for example. When he first started writing X-Men, I hated it only because I know at the very end of it, whatever he creates, nobody else could come back and carry that torch because they don't think like him, they don't plot like him, and they don't,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have the chops to pick up what is left off. Nor does the editing or the editors will have the proper notes to say, here's such and such, pick it up from here. Here's the source material. Here's the notes that was left behind. We're going to keep you in this lane.
Mm.
The reason why you don't like Grant Morrison is because now there's no editors really around. He has free reign, and he knows that at the very end of the series, it doesn't matter.
Mm.
Nobody else is going to pick it up, so I can end it however I want.
Yeah,
So
that
there's
makes
no
sense.
level of care for that.
But to
That,
me, that also seems like the whole point of these stories is that sense of continuation.
mm-hmm.
But that feeling like these are series,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's like, well, I'll just end it however I want to end it, can't nobody else pick it up after me, or ain't nobody else gonna pick it up after me. You kind of you don't. In other words, he's setting himself as the definitive
Mm-hmm.
on it, and the whole point of the editing staff, because it used to be that part of an editor's job was, you're always looking at the source material. You're always looking at the direction the story is going. You're always considering the voices of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And you're always thinking beyond this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because as an editor, your head is in three spaces. You're in the issue that's being presented to you. You're thinking about the issue that you just finished. You're on the current issue, and you're also considering that there's an issue to come. And you're thinking about this path, you know, that, and it used to be that when they didn't just give the writers to say, go do what you want to do, they had paths that they wanted these characters and these storylines to go on. And, and, and and you had an understanding of, you may only go so far on this path, and then someone else is going to, like a relay race, grab that baton and go on the next length, and then
Mm-hmm.
someone else will grab that baton and go, you're going to pass it off, and then someone else. That's used to be how it happened. But when you did that, you kept, there are things about the stories, even though you said, okay, some changes have to be made for generational, whatever, but there were certain aspects of the story that didn't change,
Mm-hmm.
that you kept consistent. So somebody who has, been a fan since, you know, way back in the day, somebody who could remember who George Reeves was,
Mm-hmm.
would be just as happy as someone who barely knows who Christopher Reeve was. There was continuation aspects of the character.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, they may dress a little different or whatnot, change the hairstyle or whatnot, make him a little, a little snarkier this time, a little more happy. But there were aspects of the character that don't change, that stay consistent. As an
Mm-hmm.
editor, that's where my head is. It's like, okay, you want to do that, but you're going to have to do this within certain parameters, because this is who this character is. And if you need to go off that rail, you better make a damn good reason for doing it, and then figure out how we're going to get him back on that rail. Because you have no guarantee that the people who have been buying are
Mm-hmm.
going to stick with it when you go in that direction. Also, you don't have a guarantee that the people who are coming up to it now are going to go on that trip with you.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's part of the editor's job. And
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like these guys get to a certain degree, and then what? Like a bunch of toddlers, you know, who've been told you can only have one bowl of Fruit Loops in the morning and you got to have the milk with it. Suddenly, like, I want my way. And if I don't get my way, where? Used to be, DC and Marvel, you could throw that fit if you wanted to, but then you better have another job waiting.
But
I
again,
think with
that's the day of having editors, true editors.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
when you think about it today, you really don't have a true ongoing series anymore. It's almost as if once the story arc changes, either the whole universe gets rebooted or that series get rebooted. It's no continuation. It's like it's almost as if, and I'm going back to storytelling. Everybody who picks up a pencil to write a Superman story has their own point of view, but nobody is being in agreement of this is the definitive idea of what the character is.
Mm.
So one writer would make Kal-El do one thing, another one would make him do completely the opposite. Those two stories do not coincide with one another, but yet you want the readership to see it as the exact same thing, which doesn't work. It never works. So what they tend to do now is like, oh, because this one is so different, what we're going to do is like we're going to have so many issues of this over here, and then we're just going to reboot the series to come out with another number one. And be
Mhm.
like, hey, we're about to retell Superman's story again, in a quick couple of blurs before he could go down this path now. It's almost like everybody takes a turn to see what a comic book fan may like before you can see what sticks. And then if you
Mhm.
find something that sticks, guess what? The next person that comes along is like, oh, he doesn't get to write after that person. He gets his own series or his own miniseries or his own one shot to see if it sticks.
You
While
know,
this other thing dies.
Grant Morrison, he described when he was writing Batman, he goes, basically he's saying, when I get done with Batman, I'm supposed to put all my toys back in the box for the next person to come play with, which is a great idea. But I think the problem became that they put the entire player room back in the toy box too,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like, okay, I'm going to put all my toys back in there, but Batman's not my toy. He belongs to the whole class, so I'm going to leave him out. They put Batman back in the box too.
Yeah, and
Or yeah, or you take the opposite track of Christopher Priest on Black Panther. He put all his toys back in the box, and the person that came along after him was like, "Well, all his toys are back in the box, including Black Panther and everything else. I'm going to do my own thing." And it doesn't make any sense because it's such a stark contrast to what came before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually it's turned into one or the other instead of it being, okay, my toys are back in the box, but here's Batman and the Bat family for you to do with what you want to. I did my thing, and you can continue from there. It's like they just put it all back in the box, or they're just trying to see how much they can get away with before someone says, "Okay, that was stupid. Don't do that." Which I don't care what anybody says. Final Crisis with Grant Morrison and Superman singing a song to beat Darkseid was dumb as hell, and he just
I forgot about that. I forgot about
he
that.
just he just wrote that to see if somebody would let him get away with it. And when they did, he said, "Cool, put it in the book. You
and,
can't convince me otherwise."
and like
I don't put it past him. I don't put it past Grant Morrison. That's the type of writing that he does. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do something uncharacteristic that's going to be like the shock moment here, but it serves no purpose other than for my own amusement.
Mhm.
that I'm sorry, that just, like I said, maybe because how I learned about editing, you know, when I got to go to the precursors for Comic Con and talk to editors and ask questions. Even though I didn't know that asking those things would lead me, I just thought it was a way to learn to edit my own stuff. I think it would lead me to editing for someone else. Um, but I guess like I said, maybe it's it used to be you wanted to keep the fans you had and find a way
Mhm.
to expand that base, but to give things so that all the fans could agree on certain aspects of that character.
Mhm.
No matter, put him under a volcano in the middle of a planet, and his own he becomes his own grandpa and has to fight, flesh-eating zombies. But there were aspects of the character that you kind of it's like when I grew up, Lois Lane, yeah, the movies, they kind of pick up the first movie, it was a little too, she's a little too Miss Snarky, whatever. But the thing is for those of us who grew up reading the Lois Lane comics, she got her position as a reporter because she was good at her job.
Mhm.
She was an investigative reporter. You know, she could sit down with the head of the police department and discuss a case and understand it and maybe come up on angles of that case that they hadn't thought of.
Mhm.
She was that smart and brilliant. Um, and and for a while in the 70s, they kind of, because it was, for too long she had been like, oh, help me, Superman. And then someone, when she suddenly got the hot pants and her consciousness was raised, it was like, wait a minute, she's an investigative reporter. She she's smart. She can be smart and still be in love with Superman and him be in
Mhm.
love with her. It's okay for her to have her own strength. So she learned some kung fu, and he didn't have to get her out of every scrape. She learned a little kung fu. She started using her mind to work things out and not get into situations where she had to be rescued every 5 seconds. Um, and and those are things that those of us who kind of grew up with Lois on the TV and whatnot, it's like, yeah, we'd see, you could go, we saw the seeds of this makes more sense, especially in the 70s and the 80s. you know this makes more sense. It was a way of taking something. Yes, Superman was still her boyfriend. Yes, there were times when she would get into something where she would need heavier muscle than herself to get out of, but she could get into and out of stuff on her own as well.
Now, according to the original Who's Who entry on Lois Lane, she learned kung fu from Superman. He taught her a Kryptonian martial art.
Okay, somebody had their head up their butt. I remember when Lois, she was investigating a game, got jumped. These two women, one white, blonde, black chick with an afro, jumped in, whooped ass, saved her. She came to, and they changed her.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, no, girl, if you're gonna be doing this, because it was not just, it was okay, let's have somebody save Lois who ain't Superman, but it was also introducing this, because they were a team and they kung fu. They were they were detectives of
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
but private, and they taught Lois how to protect herself and how to manage the mean streets a little better as a woman
Mm-hmm.
on her own. And it wasn't always like, oh, it wasn't always Polly purebred, if you get my meaning.
Yes.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, Google it.
No,
Underdog is
you
here.
don't have to Google it. It's just more along the lines: be up on your underdog.
Have no
you know,
fear. Underdog is
Underdog
here.
is here.
Yeah.
Where has my underdog gone? Where can he? Okay, I'm getting a headache. And I love
Yeah.
underdog. I love me some underdog.
Superman taught Lois Lane the Kryptonian martial art called Clear Core. is where she learned how to fight according to Who's Who.
So they
Well, that's the
totally.
reason why Elaine would never like CW Superman and Lois,
Hmm.
because their big
Mhm.
emphasis in like Supergirl, Superman and Lois, and all these other CW shows where Lois would say something as stupid as like, "Oh, we about to go and take care of these supervillains and this, that, and the other. And I'm about to go and fight with you." It's like, you don't have superpowers. And then it's like, well, Superman, was like, are you going to say anything to her? It's like, no. It just makes her, it'll make her happy if she comes along. I'm like, what?
Mhm.
What?
So
Time
so
out. Oh my, time out. It's like, no, that's not the line you're going to say. It's like, you're supposed to say, like, Lois is tougher than that, and there's no way that I could talk her out of it. Not,
especially they had established Lois. If you think about Smallville, that Lois was established as she was the daughter of a general. She had learned how to fight. She had, she had she had grown up on base. She got a little
Mhm.
training under her. She could hold her own.
Mhm.
It was one of the things I liked about that character was she could hold her own. I feel really bad because I know that duo got sort of went the way of the dodo. They didn't last very long. My understanding is when the kung fu craze in comics. 'Cause at one point, I think everybody had at least 4 or 5 different kung fu characters,
Mhm.
of which now what
even Diana learned Kung Fu from I Ching.
you know
Yeah. Well, that's because she had
Shang
to fight Egg
Chi.
Foo.
Was it Shang Chi? Who?
What are you
I
talking about on
think
the Marvel side?
Marvel's.
On the
Yeah,
Marvel side,
Marvel's side. I
you had
think their
Iron
kung
Fist, Shang-Chi,
chi,
um, White Tiger.
White Tiger. Yeah,
I forgot what the fourth one was,
yeah.
Don't forget about the Daughters of the Dragon.
but that
Colleen
came
Wing and
later.
Misty
That
Knight.
came later. That came much
That
later,
that came later. There, when
That
because
was in
now,
the
Bruce.
now you're
70s
talking
too,
about
wasn't it?
Colin Wing, Colin Wing,
Misty
Misty
Knight.
Knight, and uh, old boy's daughter that became the next White Tiger, with Daughters of the
Hmm.
Dragon.
Yeah. I thought Colleen and Misty were in the 70s because wouldn't at
Misty
least
Knight.
Misty and
Misty
Heroes for
Knight
Hire?
was in the 70s in Spider-Man, yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
But they
but
okay.
wasn't they didn't become the Daughters of the Dragon until like the early 2000s.
we're
Okay.
talking when Bruce Lee movies were all the rage. Suddenly,
Right.
and the song "Kung Fu Fighting"
And
was
you had
all
and
over.
Carl
DC had
Douglas. Carl Douglas and Kung
And you
Fu.
had Hong Kong Fooey on
number
Saturday
one super
morning cartoons and stuff. There was this whole kung
and
fu craze.
and DC had Richard Dragon and better put some respect on Bronze Tiger.
Yep.
Uh, you know.
It's like when The Exorcist became the craze, and suddenly you had like 15 sons or daughters of Satan titles that popped up out of nowhere.
I
You
like
know,
I like Damien Hellstrom, son of Satan,
yeah. Damien was
in
a
his disco
favorite.
hot pants and no shirt.
he would he I love me some Damien. There was Lilith. I liked Lilith.
Mm-hmm.
I thought her character was really cool. Um and so Damien and Lilith were two of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the other sons and daughters, because those comics, like, you'd see a few issues, they might get like a run. Usually within about 4 or 5 issues, they were pretty much done. I'm
Well,
just happy they didn't, we didn't have the Super Shark comics.
hey now,
When Jaws, you know, I'm not sure
there
what we would have,
was
yes, we had Street Sharks, but still.
there was another African American kung fu guy in DC, and he was around until the implosion in the 70s, and I cannot think of what his name is now. I don't think he's ever been around since, but I remember him because he was like a contemporary of Black Lightning, and
Um,
I can't think of who it is now.
I know the actor. He was kind of based on he was based on the black guy that was in Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, Black Belt Jones,
Yeah,
Jim, Jim.
Jim Kelly.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was based on Jim Kelly.
mhm.
And because I thought it was cute.
Can't
I'll
remember. I
admit it.
cannot think of the character right now.
I can't think of the character either, but yeah, it's like they at one point DC and Marvel could have had their own kung fu army fight offs because they each had their own little army of kung fu fighters or whatnot, and I think now I think they're only I know Marvel's back down to maybe a handful.
Yeah, that Shang-Chi movie really chapped my hide. Um,
It,
I didn't.
it was okay.
It
Well,
it,
here's
it
my problem with it. My wife, because we watch Kim's Convenience on Netflix, loves the guy who played Shang-Chi. Like that's her man.
a lot of women do. A lot of women looked at him and go, "Oh, he
He
got
is
a
a
nice
pretty
butt.
he is a pretty man, and if he wasn't so pretentious, I might give him a go. But no.
He's got a
Um.
nice butt. Hey, he got a cute butt."
Okay. Um. That's only gonna get you past the first date. You need something more than that.
It all depends on what you do on that date. Okay.
But Shang-Chi, because Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, he was a badass Bruce Lee mixed with James Bond super spy guy.
Yeah.
And in the movie, he was a man child who sings karaoke. And I'm like, what is this?
Aquafina was fun though.
That's because
And
it's a
everybody
different generation. They did not go 1970s. They went modern day generation, and modern day generation, that's what Shang-Chi would have been. But then
I
again, I don't think his father would have been what he was,
no,
according
I
to the
don't think.
movie.
no, and I'm sorry. I know that the Mandarin was so much a stereotype and he had to change, but him actually having 10 power rings that all did something different was awesome. They didn't have to make the kung fu bands that doesn't make any sense in real life at all. And I'm not talking about comic book real life. I'm talking about real life because I know
Yeah,
kung fu people who do that stupid stuff with the rings, and I laugh at them. But um, I didn't get the. I always thought the rings were cool, but I think they thought it'd be too similar to the Infinity Gems, so they didn't do it, which is a
They
shame.
didn't do it. They didn't do it right, and then they tried to blend it into the rest of the Marvel universe, saying that the rings are not Earthbound. They're alien, and we don't know where it came from, and all this other nonsense. I'm like, that's where you lost me. That's
and
where
I
I'm
think
like,
that's part of the problem. We have storytelling. And I'm talking. Okay, we're gonna get in the Wayback Machine. As always, watch out for Sherman. He's not house trained. Mr. Peabody, if you will.
And he had some cute
Way
little boy shorts.
we're getting way back in the beginnings of storyteller, when storytellers were people who would go through the town square and find a comfortable place to sit. Maybe children might have followed him, maybe not. He would find, he would raise his voice and start talking until he got a bit of an audience. And he would weave a world and tell a story. And the audience, it's the storyteller's job to bring the audience into the world and then take them through the journey. And no matter how intense or painful it is, to bring them through the end. Sometimes changed, sometimes not, depending on who your audience is, but always having enjoyed the journey. That is our calling as storytellers, you know. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in these WTF moments that we forget the simplest and most effective tools of our craft, of what we as storytellers are meant to be doing. Okay, can we come back? All right, thank you. Sherman! Anyway. You know, and like I said, I think partly because it's my insanity. I'm sorry. I will get some medication and be normal,
Please
closer to
don't.
No,
normal
well,
next time.
Please don't.
no,
But
because
it's
go ahead.
I just I think some of these boys and some of these girls have got to the wrong part of the journey. A journey doesn't start in the middle of your story. And I think too many of them are trying to get to the middle of their story instead of beginning at the beginning of it. Like I said, I've seen women's writers groups, some of the questions that they ask. And it's like, and it's like, I can't tell you how to be a good writer. I can explain aspects of the language. I can explain context and whatnot. I can advise you on spelling, syntax, and whatnot. But the telling of the story, if you don't know what your story is, you don't have a right to tell a story. You have to. The old days, these guys didn't just get up one day and go, I'm gonna tell a story, and then halfway through because they'd have stoned them to death. Little children would have been rolling boulders in groups to bury them under. You know, how dare you come up here telling me you're gonna tell me a story and then halfway through you peter out. No, we're gonna kill you. Where's my mama? Set this man on fire, mama. You I
Well,
think
they also, if they were too good at being a storyteller, they got burned for being a witch. So they had to learn to be mediocre. They had to be.
I feel like we're so caught up sometimes in the WTF moments or how naughty. And yes, my first novel had 2 men and a stag. It was over in 3 paragraphs. Come on now. It wasn't. I didn't have to explain every little aspect of the stag. You know, just put enough so you got it because it was only a very small part of the overall story. You just needed to know just to what ends these folks would go. And then you could move on to the story. But once you knew that there was no filter for them, then what happened next would make more sense. You know, it's a way you explain character. Um, and I think we have a lot of people who want to write books who haven't really read. I find I've walked away from writers groups because I find myself saying what I was told as a girl. Good writers read. You know, um, you have to read books. You have to take that stuff in, and till it's part of your breathing. And then you can put it back out there because you've read it. You've made it a part of how you think and view um, and approach. And I think we're not. Our younger generations are not really learning how to write. Fan fiction in a lot of ways is not writing. I think about and I think I am so tired of the Twilight series. It's not funny. And then to find out 50 Shades was just fan fiction for Twilight. And it's like, great, you have 2 main characters who basically should have been locked in a room somewhere and nobody should speak to them. You know, if anybody knows those stories. I'm sorry.
Now,
I think I
now, can I interject something here? Now,
sure.
I want to piggyback off of something that you said here. And the thing that you said is one of the problems with writing is that people don't read. It's not the fact that they don't read the right type of stuff. Meaning, how are you going to write something about a gun battle and you don't know how to shoot a gun? Or how a gun, or how trajectory work and how all this other stuff works in an actual fight to make it believable.
We used to research that stuff.
That's the point
Writers
that I'm
I
getting
knew when the
to.
internet was invented, it was like, yes, I don't now have to walk into police stations or people in the military, and and I'm happy because I have some military behind me, so I have some of that. But you don't have to walk in there and go, "Hey, I'm not a psychotic, and I'm not going to blow up any schools, but I'm writing this book, and I'll give you a copy of the manuscript. I just need to ask these questions and get some information." Um, but and I get it. Kids are, I've heard somebody, well, if you look up certain things, they might find it and then they'll come after you. It's like, you know what? That's what libraries are for. And a lot of major universities have undergrad libraries where you don't have to be a student to get in there and read the heavy duty stuff. You can't, so long as you limit yourself to certain areas, you can go and find that information. And that's how we used to do it. You studied up on that.
Mm-hmm.
you know I'm inputting color palettes and brushes into Clip Studio Paint because I want to have all my materials ready, so when I start the actual work, it's that much easier. I'm not running around looking for the right brush. I have that. And for me, I will admit, I'm more of a pantser than a plotter. Look it up.
Well, again, that's
But
writing terms. You get into writing terms that some people may not understand.
a pantser is somebody who, I love the journey of the story. As I'm working on the story, I go in with an idea of who my people are. I go in with an idea of what the situation is. And once I've got those things, once I've got the in the location or locations worked out, then it's just going on the journey of the story. I know who my main character is. I know how she reacts. He or she are going to react to things. I know enough about the people around her to understand how they may help or hinder that person on their journey. And then I go on the journey with them. You know, I've got an idea. It's solid enough so I can get through my story. But and I'm more of a pantser because, like I said, I go through the journey. Plotters are people who they don't write anything down until they've got like 150 little 3x5 note cards. It's in every little aspect of the
It's
story. It's
it's being
plotted
sequences.
out.
Like this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and that's 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 going to happen. And by the time you get to the 350th index card, it's like now I got a story.
I I I will do that to a point. I will. It's like if I'm painting a picture, I will paint that background. I will set my colors. But as I'm going through the picture, I also, it's a journey. And while I have an idea of what I'm going to put on that paper, I also go in there with the attitude that there are things, the painting I did for you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a clear idea of what I wanted to do, but as I started going through that version of it, suddenly it started becoming something else. It was telling me, oh, this is how my journey needs to be. I know you're gonna go this way, and there are things that you've already established, all that's locked in, but how we get to that end point is gonna be a little different than you had planned,
Mm.
you
No,
know?
the
Yeah.
whole
Well,
point.
it's
No, go ahead, Cliff, because I want to finish my point here.
oh, go ahead.
Because
I
the
just have
thing,
an anecdote. This is more
okay,
y'all's realm.
because the point that I brought out to piggyback off of you, because I want people to understand, it's like what I do for like primetime Saturday night, for example. It's not easy. It's not easy to sit through several hours of watching pro wrestling, going and looking at pro wrestling magazines and looking at pro wrestling books to understand moves and holds and everything, because people don't understand the fight itself is a choreographed story. Just can't have people fighting one another and slapping one another upside their head and everything and think it's like, oh, this is going to tell a compelling story. It's like, no, it's like each move that is being done is a part of a story, and you have to understand how that story is being told. I mean, there's videos such as, the hidden secrets of pro wrestling. And once you understand that the referee is a part of that story and they often controls the pace of the story, You know, the two wrestlers beforehand get together and plot out everything that happens in the ring. A lot of the things that happen, like going through, getting hit by a chair, going through a table, and all this other stuff, all of that are plot devices that are carefully drawn out, where they not there. It's physical, but you're not truly hurting one another. And in primetime Saturday night, I pull out some very devastating finishers across the board. And people who look at it and be like, it's like you trying to kill people. It's like, no, it could be done safely. And I could show you how it can be done safely. I mean, one of the things that got brought up several times, about the Southside Curse Stomp. One of the things that somebody says, like, how is that person not dead? And I told him, it's like, when the move is done, it looks like they're crushing them right there on their sternum, but the weight is on the other foot when they land. So it looks like they're crushing them, but yet if the other foot has all the weight on it, it's just an illusion.
Yeah.
Now, if for some reason by accident they put weight on that other foot, yeah, they're hurt. That could be a crushed chest or something to that magnitude. But that's understanding how to how everything works in pro wrestling. It takes research, and that's one of the things that is not being done. This is one of the reasons why you see a lack of going back to source material, because when you go back to source material, what are you in essence doing? You're researching, you're trying to understand why certain characters act a certain way, or why the character has a certain type of mentality, or why the character will respond to a certain situation, or even get kind of like a history of everything that they've been through, so you don't repeat history again. But we've
Case
been
in,
in that cyclic role. It's like we're gonna reinvent the wheel. We're gonna reboot everything, give the exact same origin to a greater extent in the same format, but a little bit of a slight spin on it, which doesn't make any difference because it's still the same origin.
case in point, and the coming of nighttime, werewolf design. I, in the end, and this is because I have studied, because as an artist, one of the things you study is the human form. You also study the way, no, I'm not Michelangelo. I don't, the Pope isn't giving me dispensation to go cut up bodies so I can see how they're structured. But, because he did that and made those sketches and stuff, I don't have to. And, going through books on biology, not just humans, but canids, lupines, and working out how am I going to put this together. And I was trying to figure out how to draw, because eventually you have to see the werewolf. And I finally decided I'm going to go back old school, because there was something in the old school that made more sense. There are just certain things the human body can't, if you think about what it would take to change like that. There are certain stressors within the human body that could kill you if you were not biologically um, set for this sort of thing. And that's something that I'm using in the book is, if you're not biologically predisposed to this, you're not going to be able to handle, a fully grown human, an adult couldn't handle the stressors of what it would take to have your body shift and become this thing. But also when I was thinking about, well, what's it going to look like? It's like, you know what? The human skull, it's you're not gonna you just your skull's not gonna go half a foot out like that. Your nose, all of it, it's not. It's like I can do the fangs and stuff because it'll look gnarly, but there are certain things I need to not do, because as humans, especially since I'm not doing my son and I had this whole discussion about the difference between, am I grounding this in reality or am I grounding this in fantasy? And it's like I'm grounding it more towards reality. So there are certain things that my werewolves aren't going to do. But because in some ways they maintain a sense of humanness. That means you can put a hood on, stick your hands in your pocket, slump down a bit, walk down the street. They could pass you, you would never know it unless one of them jumped you, or you were specifically trying to look out for it. They could slip in and through humanity. Because I was thinking, if you had a creature like this that has existed for millennia, they would have to be able to move in and around society without being found out. And the less human that you look, the harder that is to do.
All
You know,
right.
it's one thing to run out in the dark Bavarian woods. It's another thing to walk down Michigan Avenue that way. So, but it's sitting there and researching it and trying to work out, what can I do, what can I not do, how I can stretch it a little bit, but if I stretch it too far, it's going to be ridiculous. And I didn't want to go into the realm of the ridiculous. And these are choices that as writers we have to make, especially really, if I swear, if you Sherman, if you don't get off my camera, I'm gonna knock you through that wall. Yeah, go
Well,
go find it, get in that corner. Bye.
well,
Well, you know,
it's almost that time. But go ahead, Cliff.
I was gonna going along what we were talking about. Um, I'm pretty sure it's Alan Moore. He said his generation of creators and writers grew up reading novels and watching movies and plays, and the modern writer grew up reading comic books. So they don't know, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, they don't know where the wheel came from.
They don't know if the wheel is. Ah,
And the
see,
same thing
I'm
goes
I'm
with
with Alan
Clive's
Moore.
analogy about pro wrestling. Mhm. And the same thing goes with Joe talking about pro wrestling. Back in the day, you learned to be a professional wrestler by going through the territory system. You learned to be a professional wrestler by traveling to Japan, into Europe, into Mexico, and learning all the different styles of pro wrestling to tell your story. When the WWE took over the planet, everyone spent generations only learning the WWE style. That's what they watched. That's what they saw. That's what they understood. If you wanted to become a pro wrestler, you went to NXT and you learn in the Performance Center how to wrestle like a WWE star. So you don't understand, like, people, a lot of the guys in Japan or Mexico or in AEW who didn't learn one way of doing things. They understand the whole of the story better and where the wheel came from. And that's a lot of what's missing now. They don't know where the wheel came from. That's why if you were bored and hated your life enough, you watch WrestleMania. A lot of it didn't make any sense because a lot of the story beats have died in that generation version of wrestling because they never grew up watching or learning how they do it in Mexico or how Southern pro wrestling is different than wrestling in the Northeast of America,
Mm-hmm.
and that how to change and adapt to make your story better. And that, I think that's a lot of what it is they don't know where a lot of creators don't know where the wheel came from anymore.
So children, listen to your Auntie Moo, okay? Can you hear me? Do you hear me? Okay, listen to your Auntie Moo. Read a damn book. Read a lot of damn books. Don't just watch what came out the year you were born. Go get in the Wayback Machine. Go start watching some of the old stuff. You want to know where all this stuff come from? Go see the root.
Mm-hmm.
Go see the root. Go see those old musicals. Go see those old Jimmy Cagney films. Go watch that stuff. Because if you want to learn, especially like you want to learn how to do film noir so that at the end, you're like, people going, dang, go watch Double Indemnity. Okay? Mr. My Three Sons as a crooked real estate dude. Okay,
Fred
and Barbara
McMurray.
Stanwyck.
Fred
Okay,
McMurray.
Yeah, well,
there,
you know, it's
there's a speed limit in this town down at 50 miles an hour. You know how fast was I going? I'd say around 70. You know, you want to learn how dialogue back when dialogue was stylized and it snapped, crackle, and pop. Learn, and it's not like you can't find it. It's
mhm,
all over the place. It is all over the place. Take a month and forget, let go of the Kardashians. The Kardashians gonna eat regardless, okay? If nothing else, they can cut off parts of Kim's booty and feed a village. Okay, stop. Just, but learn, okay? And I was lucky. Yes, I'm an AFI grad. I'm a graduate of the American Film Institute. And guess what we did at the American Film Institute? We watched old movies, which was great because I knew a lot of the old movies that we watched. Why? Because I saw them on TV.
mhm.
Okay? They have TV stations that are just old movies. Watch them.
Mhm.
Turner Classic. Don't pay for, spend 2 months not paying for Netflix. Watch Turner Classic movies for 2 months and
Well,
see how it was done.
now, not coming off sounding too much like get off my lawn, like we kind of were here. Yes, you need to know where the wheel came from, but you also have to people also have to understand times change, and where the wheel came from is still important, but the wheel in 1892 doesn't look like the wheel in 2025.
No,
You
but you
have to
know what?
understand the difference.
But here's the thing, and I was just telling Courtney about this. We were talking about the Canterbury Tales,
Yeah.
Hmm.
okay? And I was telling her, sweetie, the Canterbury Tales, when I was a girl, you had to be a senior, either a junior at the end of your year or a senior in high school to read the Canterbury Tales. Because and there are states where I'm sure they will no longer allow, it's Chaucer, it's classic literature, but they will, considering the tale of the wife of Bath alone.
Hmm.
Okay,
That's not even before you get to Miller. The Miller, all the Miller's
I'm
tales.
saying before, makes 50 Shades look like romper room. All right.
Hmm.
It's not to say, oh, well, you have to, but use it as let it inspire you. No
Hmm.
one's saying you have to write like Chaucer. Yes, it's antiquated English. I had to stand up in class and read it in the original Middle English in order to get my A.
Hmm.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
I was the only black girl in the school having to stand up there and recite it in Middle English. I wanted to smack that man. Anyway.
All right, no fussing. You ready to fuss? It's like that has nothing to do with it. That's old
It's
school
not
fussing.
saying you have to shoot like that, but sometimes it's like you said, know where the wheel is. You like Kurt Russell in The Thing? Go see the William Marness version
Hmm.
that inspired it, and then watch. You know,
Hmm.
learn to see where it started, and then see how it progressed and evolved. No one is saying that we want to lock you in. No one's saying don't get inspired. But when you understand how the wheel was formed, you have a better idea how to make it more efficient,
Hmm.
make it a better wheel, a wheel that
Right.
can go fast, turn sharper, run folks up, and folks won't even be able to go, they already run over by the wheel because you didn't
Hmm.
learn how the wheel was formed to begin with.
Right.
So we're
You know,
not
it's
saying this is the only way to do it. We're saying it's the place where you start. It's the seed. And then the
mhm,
stories you tell, inspired by that seed, become the new growth.
mhm.
And the tree strengthens and improves as opposed to dying out in apathy.
Right.
You know.
Well, using the pro wrestling analogy, every generation of wrestler and every generation of wrestling fan thinks that the wrestling that came after them is horrible. Like, for example, Ric Flair's generation, that a lot of that I grew up with because I'm a kid of the '80s. The generation before that hated it because they thought it looks fake and flashy. Today's old timers of wrestling who grew up in the '70s and the '80s hate modern wrestling because it doesn't look like a real fight. It's too choreographed. As opposed to back in the '70s and the '80s when you threw someone towards ropes, they couldn't stop running. That was apparently realistic in the '70s. Or the fact, now we see real fights on TV in sports all the time. None of it looks like a pro wrestling match. But it's the thing of generations can't learn from one another too. And that's something a lot of people have to get over as well.
Well, let's piggyback off of that. Let's go to the
Mhm,
1920s and 30s, where it
mhm.
was scientific wrestling. It was an offshoot of the old school Roman Greco. People would actually go and watch people literally get hurt. Like a submission move back then was a submission move. It was hours upon hours of actual technical fighting, and then it
Farmer
slowly
Burns,
moved by the 60s to the more choreographed because again people got tired of that old school one-on-one fight.
Farmer Burns, who was a frontiers wrestler from the 1800s, thought Strangler Lewis in the 1920s and Carl Gotch in the 1940s doing that style that you're describing was fake.
Mm-hmm.
So it's every generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
That's
every
what I'm getting
generation.
at. It's
But
like
it
every
because
generation that comes before
the
it feels.
original Greco-Roman wrestling could hospitalize you if you did it the way they laid it out. Half those wrestlers wouldn't survive.
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
that was back in 10,000 years ago.
Right.
but when it
But
was so,
Ancient Greek boxing is not boxing that we got today because why?
mhm.
Back then, boxing gloves and stuff had spikes and stuff on it. You was getting hurt. You was getting hurt. You don't. It's like it's a whole different aspect.
and you make the
Well, the
changes
whole
as we grow and understand, as we
mhm,
as we gain as we gain this as a society and whatnot. Yes, changes are going to be made, but
mhm,
when we toss out the baby and the bathwater,
yeah.
we lose a lot. And I think part of the problem of where we are now in certain regards is we have not paid enough attention to history.
Mhm,
It's the old saying of those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it because you don't
mhm.
you don't keep your eyes on how it started and where it began. Um, and I'm not telling storytellers don't tell your stories. I'm saying do the research. Go watch how they did it. Watch Cleopatra with Burton and what's his name. Go watch those old spectacle movies. See, you want to see some filmmaking. Watch them old Cecil B. DeMille. When I was a girl, um, what is it? The Ten Commandments got shown every year
Mhm.
growing up when I was a girl.
That was the Easter thing. It was
You
the
know,
Easter. It was
and
the
the,
Easter thing.
and here in the Midwest, the two lead professional wrestlers were the Bruiser and the Crusher. They were
Mhm.
cousins, and they often fought together. And I know this because my daddy used to drag me out of bed early on a Sunday morning to drink beer and watch wrestling with him. Up until the day I just went bam.
Mhm.
But so I learned a few things. So he
You know,
taught
in
me.
in Milwaukee, they still have a Crusher Fest every year to honor
Do
the
Mhm.
Crusher.
they?
Yep.
Oh wow! I got to see if I can get to Milwaukee. Then that'd be cool to do.
Mhm,
That would be cool to see because I just my father was a huge fan of those guys, and it was
mhm,
fun. They made it. I was never a big wrestling fan until I started seeing Greco-Roman wrestling in the Olympics, which I much
mhm,
prefer. Um, but they did make it fun. They kept it interesting.
mhm,
They kept it. There was a groundedness to these guys. Their connection was something you wanted to see. That they wove a story, and you wanted to see them overcome. They were the
mhm,
heroes of their story, and
Yeah.
they wove that story most efficiently. But at the same time, these guys are in shape. I think Crusher. I read a story in a magazine where either Bruiser or Crusher was talking about he was out, and some dudes. I forgot where he was, and some dudes came up and got in his face. It's all fake. It's all fake, and they jumped him, and he
Hmm.
whooped everybody's ass.
Oh yeah,
And the
because back in the
cops got, and the cops were like, the cops were a little torn because on
hmm
one hand, and people saw the fight, so they're saying no, he did not start this, he was minding his own business, they got up in his face and started this stuff, they sold the wolf tickets and he shut them up.
hmm
But at the same time, you know he's a professional,
hmm
he trains, so they were hurt. And the cops are kind of like, okay, you didn't start the fight, but you finished it. And now, there isn't a single one of these six dudes who doesn't have to be hospitalized,
hmm
you know. And I guess he finally got his day in court, and the judge was more on his side because people came up and said he did not start this. And he tried
hmm
to warn folks off and say, hey, well, if I'm so fake, then,
Yeah, because
go do you, and fine. But some idiots, when they make the decision to be idiots, can't stop.
well,
And
back in the day, you're talking about it was called protecting the business. You protected kayfabe. They were told, a lot of them were told, if you get into a bar fight and you don't win, you don't have a job anymore. So they learned how to fight dirty too. There was a lot of stories about old pro wrestlers smashing eyeballs out in bars.
Mm-hmm.
he didn't go that far. He broke some
Mhm.
bones though.
Yeah.
There wasn't a single guy who had jumped him who didn't need to go to the emergency room and have something reset. And I remember reading it thinking, I'm on his side
hmm
because I'm sitting here having my beer, minding my own business. And then you all up in my face selling wolf tickets. That's what we used to call it when on the south
Yeah.
side of Chicago, selling wolf tickets. Sorry, children. Um, you gonna get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You gonna get hurt. You want to sell some wolf tickets up in me? Because the thing was the minister used to tell the story about a dog. Every time people would go by, the dog would bark. He would
hmm
run up to the gate, and one day, a really big dog, he got came in the gate and tore him a new one. And
hmm
the dog's response when he got to heaven was, "Who left the gate open?" Because so
hmm
long as he thought he was safe behind that gate, bark, 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 bark. It wasn't until he realized, oh wait, you can come in this gate and whoop up on my butt. And so it's like I think it's funny. I just saw a thing Chris Helmsworth was talking about. He was shooting a movie and they had to walk him through a prison because he didn't know what it looked like. And they were
hmm
walking him through a prison. He had a lot of security. They were walking him through the prison so he could see what it looked and felt like. And he was so happy to get out because he said when he walked in, someone recognized him and they started screaming, Thor! Thor's in the house! Thor's in the house! And he said at one point they were walking by, must have been a lifer area, and dudes were shouting, dude, come on in my cell. Show you something interesting. He's like, I just want to go home. I just, I just wanted to go home.
Well, it's that time because it's time for me to go grab something to eat for dinner because it is
I
that
got a
time.
slice of pizza calling my name. You know.
So let's go ahead and do our goodbyes for the evening.
Okay. I guess that's me first.
Yep.
Sherman, boy, I will. Mom, I'll hit you so hard your mama will feel it all the way down to your great grandma. Okay. Thank you. As you can see, my address, lenscaponline.com. That's my website. You can find me at Facebook. I'm hanging out with these guys because, They can't shake me. How's that evil? I'm here. I'm Elaine.Haygood here on YouTube. Come, I've got videos. Sherman, stop. Okay. Thank you for being here. We love you. We love the fact that whether you see us live or watch us later, you put in the time. And like I said, writers study stuff. Okay? Ain't gonna kill you to learn stuff. Ain't nobody telling you got it. Stop. Ain't nobody telling you got to write it like Shakespeare, but reading a few sonnets might help you, may help you know where the periods go. Okay? Bye.
And there, Cliff. And the only thing that
And
was
so,
missing from that is that boy ain't right.
well, this boy ain't right, and I'm still down here in Mississippi, and I'm just gonna go make my wife watch Mississippi River Sharks on Tubi. So
Oh, okay. That's
have
good.
fun with
That
that.
could be fun. That could be
For
fun.
me, not for her.
All right. Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting. I was like, I'm up here thinking about you about to promote something. It's like, nope, nope.
I'm
You
promoting
just
Tubi. I'm gonna go watch bad movies. That's
yeah.
what I got to promote.
All right, cool. So that brings us to this part of the show where we have to say that this show is brought to you by Plasma Fire Graphics and Jeffrey Hayes. Jeffrey Hayes is an award-winning artist who actually puts out great graphics that you can use for your books and for your comic book covers. And if you don't believe me, check out this video.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasma Fire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasma Fire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
And there you see it. There you have it. Give Jeffrey Hayes a quick little ring-a-ding on the interweb by going out to plasmafiregraphics.com or his Facebook group for Plasma Fire Graphics. As far as I am concerned, I will be back here on Saturday. We're going to do our normal From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher here, and we got it all set up here. We're going to talk about my latest experiment with AI, artificial intelligence, and using and my experience from using the what is it called, the Dream Up app on DeviantArt. And we're going to talk about a couple of things that I just really don't like about just AI art itself, and some of the things we'll get to it. I'm not going to spoil anything just as of yet. So until Saturday, live life, grow, and be well. And unlike our founder Brian K. Morris, I don't care if you wash your hands, but never, and I do mean never, apologize for being awesome. We'll catch you back next week right here on Thursday, 7:00 Central, for another episode of Comic Book Spectrum. Have a good evening.